we not only need food, but we need like someone to talk to, you know. Those are one of the things. Some other thing is that now instead we used to give like soap and toothbrush and stuff like that for hygiene, but now we need to incorporate a mask, hand sanitizer, as things that as the weather keep going, the temperature keep going down, then now we need to socks, you know. And how do we do that too if we cannot be inside? If we have to be kind of outside and with this super cold weather, like, and then we need to ask why are we here as a church? Why are we here? Like what we are trying to provide, to give, you know, and what are the people's needs? Because we need to respond to the community needs. So one of the things we did is that we tried then inside to make some having like the distance and trying to make sure that we don't have like a lot of people, but at least to give them some time to get warmer during the cold weather, you know. And we gave them clothes, jackets, and stuff like that. So we have had to adapt, and I think we did the best we can, because we are not a wealthy church. We are actually like a lot of the churches, regular churches or suburban churches, are people that come from outside the community. No, our church is made from people of the community, and these are people who are living below the poverty line. So we depend a lot on donations and stuff like that. But one of the things that these people have is that they are always willing to give forward. You know, I was one time a story. So we opened the church. We went virtual for a moment, and then we opened back again. And we decided to, because it's a poor community, to not have offering, like not collect tithes and offerings, because they can use the money for surviving. And it was actually the church members who went to us, hey, where do I put my offering? And we were like, oh, okay, you know, like, so these are people that are giving all they have, like the widow in the gospel, like her 2 cents. That's all she had. She gave them all. So these are our people, and they are willing to give the little they have to share. Yeah, Jennifer, if you have something else that you want to add.
No, I think you covered it all. But I think the other thing that I had to step away from it that I heard you say, before the pandemic happened, this was actually a celebration. Once a month, we had a party with the community. Once a month,
yes,
we invited people in. And when we first started doing this ministry, you know, our folks are also, you know, our church folks are regular folks. Everyone has different ways of thinking. And people felt like, well, we're giving people food and they're not coming to church on Sunday. Or people would come into the service, and then we had to find the way to welcome the folks from the street into the service. And then we also had to find the way to make sure that the people from our church understood that what they were doing was an act of love and is a matter of justice, not charity. Because we felt people were saying things like, well, they don't come to church, then I don't want to, you know, give, I don't want to, you know, bring rice. And I said, don't bring your rice, you can leave. You know, I'm not a pastor, I don't care. You don't want to come, don't come. But this is what we're doing. And if you're going to give food, you're going to give it with love. And then the other thing is that I noticed that we would set up the tables, and the people that would walk in from the community would sit down, and all our church people were standing around watching. And I'm like, this isn't a show. Why don't you sit and eat? Every Sunday when we have food, you sit and eat. Oh, I don't want to sit with them. I'm like, why not? They smell. Of course they smell. They live on the street. Wouldn't you smell? Get over it and sit with them. And so I instituted a policy that either you're serving a meal, or you're in the kitchen helping, or you're sitting there eating with the people.
yes.
When Bishop Miller came, I told him the same thing. This isn't a spectator sport. You don't stand here. You sit with people and eat with them. And And that created a sense of community. And again, it's not that our folks are magical and wonderful and they were open arms and the homeless community. It took a long time to get to where we're at. Now we walk down the street and unfortunately there's about 50 men that live in the park across the street from the church. Year round, they live there. And so we see them, and our folks from our church, they come to the church on foot. They don't have cars. So they know the people in the park, and they'll tell me, and they know them by name. So and so hasn't come, and so hasn't come. And they ask the other people, have you seen, Carlos, or have you seen, so that is another big piece, I feel, because when I talk to folks about what we do, they say, oh, but it'll be so hard for our community to accept, people in their church. And I'm like, because we're magical. Like our folks had same issues, like letting home. And the other thing is that people would use our bathroom, right? They would walk out and we have no toilet paper left in our bathrooms. Our soap would be gone. And our church people would feel upset. Like, we don't have money. We're giving them food. Why are they doing this? And so it became a process of explaining, well, what would you do if you lived on the street? And having that conversation with them. So it's been an ongoing education process. And the other thing is that we then work with another church. Someone asked, where does our funding come from folks like your church who have been gracious to donate money and supplies to us. We have another church, Grace Lutheran in Mount Prospect. They were sending me checks to the church because they knew me when I used to do advocacy work, and they heard that people thought the church was closed because when the pastor left, the rumor was that the church was dying and the church was going to close. And it wasn't until I created a Facebook page and started promoting it. People always thought the church had closed. So I went to a suburb. I went to Grace Mount Prospect to do a presentation on advocacy, and people were all excited about, because I was the public policy director for the ELCA in Illinois, and folks all were excited to reauthorize the food stamp bill, right, to make sure people, and then they heard that my church was still open, and they started sending checks. And we were in conversation with the president of the council at Grace Lutheran, and I said, I thought you were going to come. Oh, I couldn't get anyone to come. We'll come next month. And next month didn't come. And next month. So when they sent the secretary called me saying that the check, they wanted to know the exact address in the check. I said, I don't want the check. The $200 check. I don't want the check. The guy called me. What do you mean you don't want the check? I'm like, why don't you come and see who it is that these $200 are serving? When you talk about reauthorizing the food stamp bill, when you talk about the people, you picture who the poor people are. They never left. They've been there now for 4 years. They come once a month on Sunday and they worship with us, English and Spanish. And that $200 check became a $400 check, and so on and so on. I get emotional. It's not that we didn't need the check. And it was in a time when I was about to give up on the church. I was overwhelmed and stressed. I had no support from the synod. I had no support from an institution. I had people like Eddie and other pastors volunteering. Pastor Jason, as soon as I met him, was like, how can I help? Before even committing the church, he committed himself. So I thank Jason for that. And then Jason found ways for us to connect as a congregation. But that was important to me. Like, I took a risk. Like, I needed those $200, but I was more upset at the fact that as a person who promotes advocacy and who goes around teaching people, like, why as a church we're called to help people. If you have no connection to people, then it's easy to write a $200 check. And it's easy to say, well, I did my part and, the laws are the laws. But when you are in relationship with people and you see who it is being impacted, that is the kind of advocacy that's important to me, because then you move from charity to justice. You move into creating the wholeness, the shalom of God here on earth. It is no longer over there, their problem. And so when all the social unrest happened this summer, the people from Grace Lutheran started calling, are you all okay? We heard they're burning, churches or storefronts. How are the folks? When the pandemic hit, the folks from Pastor Jason called me and other people, how's the pandemic affecting you? What do you need? And so again, I feel that developing real relationships is what's going to change this world, because you're in connection. And so the folks from Grace Mount Prospect, they heard us complaining about people saying, oh, they're stealing the toilet paper. So one of the members from Grace, she never has come and she'll never come, but she heard her husband talking about this. And so she called me, she said, people need toilet paper. And she just started sending me toilet paper. She scheduled it and it comes. And then when the pandemic, so we don't have church staff. So she asked me, I told her, you can't just have it delivered to the church. She said, well, can't stay there? I'm like, people will steal it. So she started, I work at Women of the ELCA. So she started sending it to the churchwide. People at churchwide were like, why is this woman hoarding toilet paper? Why does she boxes and boxes of toilet paper? And then it started with toilet paper. Then it became hygiene, other items for hygiene. She just took it upon herself to go on Amazon and all these other, and she scheduled all these deliveries. So needless to say, we had a lot of toilet paper. And when the pandemic hit, we weren't able to go into the building. And the people from Trinidad were calling me saying that they didn't have access to, so when everything shut down in March, most people immediately were able to get in their car, and if they didn't have anything in their local supermarkets, they could drive to, you know, a nearby suburb, Skokie, Evanston, Niles, whatever. Our folks don't have that luxury. They're on fixed incomes. So they had to wait until the weekend on the 30th when their Social Security money hit, their food stamp money hit. And those items are not even available to be bought with food stamps. You can't buy, you can only buy food with them. And so when our folks went to the 2 grocery stores that are walking distance in the church, they were gone. So started calling me. I went to church, right? I loaded up the car. And on that Sunday, I felt like Oprah, you get a package of toilet paper and you get a package of toilet paper. And we just cleaned out everything we had in our storage. Anything we had, we gave away because our folks literally didn't have, even if they had money, they had no way of accessing materials. And so those are the things that happened in the pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if along those lines of support and who's supporting, who's getting involved, can I go ahead and share the interview with Raymond?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was the first part of the video. The whole video will be on our website in a day or two, but this is the first part of the video, an interview with volunteer. Let me go ahead and share my screen. That would be helpful. Can everyone hear it okay and see it okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Raymond. I'm a member, 40 years, because I'm 41, and I'm also a volunteer. Give or take the 40 years. Besides it being my church, giving back to the community and giving back to my church the same way it's blessed me, I want to bless it back. Look around. The people, the environment. The needy, the homeless, the wealthy, the rich and the poor.
So that is one volunteer out of many volunteers and folks who support Trinidad. Is there anything else you want to say around Raymond, volunteers, support?
Eddie?
Yeah, we have he is one of our volunteers. We have also church members that also volunteer. But one of the really interesting things that happens is that even people who, one time we did a yard sale, and this person came and saw what we were doing, and then Jen started talking to her, and then suddenly she came for one of our luncheons as a volunteer, because she saw what we are doing, and this is not a religious person, you know, like this is not a person who is a churchy member, this is someone who likes to serve the community, and she saw what we are doing even as a church, because, you know, sometimes church has a bad reputation, right? Like sometimes at church we try to proselytize, oh, you don't receive this food because if you don't come here or whatever, but no, for us it's about serving, and she was able to see that. And Caroline, that's her name, she has been a constant volunteer to our luncheons, and she, even when there were some times that we couldn't, we were going to meet or something, and she was, and we were like postponing, and she was like, no, I wanna meet, you know, like it becomes, even for her, a desire to be part. And right now, even though she's not a Sunday member, but she is in a sense a member of the church. Because a lot of the time we have people, we call them member, and they just come on Sunday. They don't do anything else during the week, and they come on Sunday. Well, she comes on our luncheons,
okay.
and she might not come on Sunday, but she comes to our luncheons and to help. So she can also become a member of this church in another way, because that's what we are here trying to do, to build community. And it's a little bit of what Jen is saying. It is about building relationships. This is not to self-gratify ourselves. We're not doing this because oh, look how good we are. Look this church, how amazing. It's not about that. It's about building, creating community, building relationships. And I think that's one of the things that is important about the volunteer. Volunteers, we are a family. We are a family. Yeah, Jen.
So like he was saying, this woman, Caroline, she's been living in the community for 20 plus years. She's an immigrant from Ireland. And she still has connections to Ireland. She just had to go back home, and there was an issue with her family. And so she said, she started talking to us about that happened in her family.
We're losing you, Jen.
Started talking about what she was going through emotionally, and she needed. We told her, we prayed for her, and we prayed for her family, and she was just so moved by that. She was raised Catholic, but she said she doesn't, prescribe to any particular religion, but she was really thankful that she said in a way she felt this was her church. And so when we talk about our neighborhood is highly gentrified, as you know. It's changing. There's a lot of new restaurants and businesses that moved in before the pandemic. We have a lot of condos up and down. Our neighbors, all the buildings that are next to the church are being turned into condos. We have Norwegian Hospital right behind us. They're expanding. And so there's always been this tension of, we are the traditional community, not tradition, but their members are about 40 years or so. They've lived in the Humboldt Park area. Most of them came in the 60s in the migration of where Puerto Ricans were to come to the United States, especially in canning and manufacturing businesses. They needed manual labor, and that's where majority of the Puerto Rican families came, and they settled around Humboldt Park, which is a predominantly Polish, German community, and there were a lot of race riots back then. And over the years, white flight, the Irish and Polish immigrants, ended up getting better jobs, being assimilating and moving out of the community, and the Puerto Rican community stayed there. And so now we're having it where our folks who lived there 40 years have paid off their houses, can no longer afford to stay there because their property taxes have tripled. And so they're on fixed incomes, they worked so hard, they paid off their home, they feel like they're gonna retire and die in their homes. And now they have, where one family used to, maybe it was the mom lived on the first floor and her children lived on the second floor, now they all live on the one floor and they rent out the other apartments, and they to be able to keep a house they already own. And so one of the things we've been doing is that as much as we can, which with our limited time and availability, is connecting with the local neighborhood organizations that are working on issues like affordable housing and looking at ways that people can go for property taxes. And so bringing in, and through that, we've also gotten volunteers. So I reached out to the local community organizations to bring in information on, doing case management, so to help what wraparound services the homeless community can have. Someone mentioned they volunteer for night ministry. We wanted to make sure what nights is night ministry here in the community, so we can let our people know. And then I looked around and saw what other churches were doing meals on a Sunday. Yeah. It ended up that there were 4 churches in the area giving meals on a Sunday, and sometimes we would end up doing them on the same Sunday. So I took it upon myself to call those churches, try to create a relationship with those pastors and say, when are you doing your meal? Fine, you do it the second Tuesday, I'm gonna move it. One church felt like we were competing. They're really upset at us. And I finally wrote down those barriers. I ended up meeting the person running it, talking to her. She's now our buddy. Eddie and I volunteer with her. That's St. Lucas church across the street from us. And so we share our resources. There are other churches, Peñaranda's church it's Trinity in Bridgeport. When she has extra items, she gives them to me. When I can, on Tuesdays, I volunteer at her church. And so looking at it, that again, this is about relationship building. I saw some things. We literally in the Humboldt Park area, there's like 4 churches. We serve the same 60 to 80 people that are consistent, but on a given Sunday we can have about 100 people that come through for meals and supplies. But we're learning more and more, especially in the pandemic, people are coming through because they want a sense of belonging. Yes. So last meal, we had to completely redo our process. We've been doing the meal outside. but because it was going to be so cold, we just couldn't do it outside. And so we made sure our volunteers were okay. We let them know we're going to let people inside the church. Eddie and I worked, and we worked everything to make sure we were practicing social distancing. But people needed to use the bathroom. People needed to even sit minutes and warm up. And we right away made hot coffee. And so it wasn't the full-blown meal like it used to be where we sat inside, but people were able to sit inside. And people just wouldn't stop talking. And Eddie was, Eddie goes around talking to folks, and they just, that sense of connection, and they were sharing information with each other. Like, have you got, and then we were worried with Eddie, we're trying to see how we open the church up to let people sleep in the church. But we found out that there's a Christian non-denomination church on the block that opened a temporary shelter for a week. So Eddie and I went over there and door knocked and tried to, they weren't receptive to us, but they did let us know what services they were providing. We're not competing for folks. Like, I don't care if they go to someone else's church, if they're going to come to my church and get the supplies they need. And so trying to work with the other churches to get that we're really all in the same business. And then in doing that, I've met people in the community who are new in the community, and they say, we thought this church was closed. We didn't know what to do. And they'll drop off like a case of soda, or they'll ask us what we're doing. And in the street, they're jogging and walking their dogs, and they reach in their pocket and they hand me money. They're like, oh, we didn't know what was going on here. And there's a big movement in Humboldt Park. There's a group of people that moved in. They created a Facebook page. They want to change the name from Humboldt Park. They don't want the Puerto Rican festivities to happen there. They complain about anyone who's feeding the homeless. They're complaining about the fact that the community is fighting for affordable housing. So there's a big push that people would like to see us leave, and people like our church that are doing work leave. So there's a big tension there. But I feel that, again, the more we talk to people, the people who moved in, they want to help. I believe in all humans have opportunities to have good qualities, and the young people that are moving in that we see that are different from us, they want to help out. So we're trying to find ways. Now we have Eddie there to create deeper relationships with community organizations.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm wondering if kind of as a closing question, and then it's kind of a closing question. How else can folks on this call and folks at WPLC get involved? We're raising money, but I know it's about relationship building. So are there volunteer opportunities coming up, or specific needs like gaps in, I don't know if you need more toilet paper at this point, or other items? Anything coming to mind for you guys?
So at this point, the volunteer situation gets hard because we try to limit the amount of people that are there. So if you're interested in volunteering, I guess you can let Bethany know, or Pastor Jason, and then you can get a hold of me. So what I do is every month, because that's the one thing I'm still coordinating. I'm trying to, Raymond is hopefully the person I'm training to be the new person to run the whole community meal. I'm working with him. But the idea would be that the week before the meal happens, I like to see how many of my volunteers are available, and then we make sure we have no more than 7 people physically in the building, so then we can allow more people. Now, once we start doing outside, we'll be able to have more people volunteering. Another thing we're doing now is meeting in between the meals to set everything up to put so that we can change then the amount of people that are in there, to do the hygiene kits, to put things together. Another way to get involved would be to I'm just going to say, when you see the ELCA, especially, we don't have a public policy office anymore in Illinois, but when you see organizations that are working to bring about change for affordable housing, when we're looking at ways to make sure that right now the stimulus package, that folks, including folks who are undocumented, have access to the stimulus package. When we look at legislation that will impact the way that the community is affected, those are ways that have long-term effects, because that's what's really driving the people to be on the streets. A lot of the folks who are on the streets are folks who suffer from mental health issues and addiction problems. And a couple of years ago, they shut down all the mental health programs in the city of Chicago, and all those folks were on the street. And so any kind of movement that you hear about creating funding for opening mental health centers in the city of Chicago, those are the kind. I'll keep Pastor Jason and Bethany informed of those advocacy opportunities. But like I said, when the volunteers, especially when it gets warmer and we move back outside, we'll be able to have more volunteers in person.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I definitely hope to to be in touch, please do send over those opportunities. We'd love to announce them in our newsletter and our, Sunday worship services. And definitely, if I'm still vicar, or if I'm, if we're meeting back in person, if you're meeting back in person while I'm still vicar, I definitely want to get folks involved, try to get a group over to go and volunteer with me. So
to respond really fast to one of the comments or question in the chat that Susan talks about the community and COVID. So we are working on having people vaccinated. We're looking for a way in which we can partner. But yes, our church members have been affected by COVID. As we know, the Black and Brown community has been the most affected communities during COVID. And part of the thing is, in our community, like even if they weren't they didn't contracted COVID, they did know somebody who contracted or somebody who died. And a lot of the conversation during that peak in the pandemic it was about like somebody who died, and the community was in a grieving stage. So a lot of the work that we have to do is to deal also with that grief, and because thank God, I mean, I shouldn't say thank God, but our community, like the church, did not lose anybody personally through COVID, but they did have people who lose someone, and that still affects the church. So I just want to mention that.
Yeah, like there's one family, I've done 3 funerals for them already this year because of COVID. One family has had 3 people impacted. But like Eddie said, we've been working and making sure we're asking, most of our seniors, which is the majority of our congregation, have been vaccinated. And then right now we're making sure through programs that we hear about that we're making sure people can go get vaccinated.
Yeah, actually, we're being more strict than the city and the state.
Are people resisting vaccination, or is that a problem that some people are turning it down? Or
we've had some. The good thing is Eddie has been vaccinated. I've been vaccinated, and we've been able to share that with folks. Look at Eddie's going to show us his arm. And our church council president has been vaccinated, and he today, especially when we had our service, he reiterated to everyone: if you have an opportunity to get vaccinated, it's important. Nothing's going to happen to you, and whatever happens to you won't be worth getting COVID. So we've been, and like I said, the majority of our church members are older, so they do have access to vaccination. Where I live, for instance, it's a high poverty zip code, and therefore there's high incidence of infection and that. So anybody who lived in the 60639 zip code, there were a couple of health centers that were open, and anyone who lived in that zip code was able to get the vaccine. Demographics around the church have moved. That zip code is no longer considered a high poverty. Because that just changed a couple of years ago. Now they probably would have had a mass vaccination for anybody who lived in that zip code. But we do have actually the hospital that I mentioned around the corner from the region has reached out to us. Eddie's going to talk to them. They might even want to come do vaccinations out of our church halls. So we're going to follow up on that.
Yes. Thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you for the answer.
Bethany.
Any other questions? Yeah, any other questions? I mean, if you need to, if anyone needs to jump off, feel free to jump off at this point. But yeah, if you don't mind, Eddie, then we keep chatting if anyone has additional questions.
We're an open book.
Yes. Echoing Denise, thank you both so much for joining us and letting us highlight your work. And yeah.
I just want to thank you again. I serve also on the Synod Council with Pastor Jason. And the other thing that people asked about support is that when COVID hit, the Synod wanted to know what to do. And a bunch of us were in meetings around the Synod with the staff. We talked about the need to create others talking about releasing funds to help people, but then we were able to really talk about, if you're going to give funds, don't ask me to do, $10,000 worth of paperwork and reports if you're going to give me, $500. And so Pastor Jason's been a big advocate of making sure that all that bureaucratic red tape is cut out, but also making sure that there's processes in place and making sure that the money hits the most affected people. And so the ELCA did a good job about sending also money. I'm the president of the Latino Ministry Association for the ELCA. And one of the first things we did when we heard that there was money going to be released for COVID relief, to make sure that they recognize that Black and brown communities are disproportionately impacted. In New York, there were two churches, two Latino churches, that among those two churches, they had 100 deaths in March of last year. So, and New York and California, the churches that worry me the most, I'm working to see how we can continue to get them support that they need. Because the other thing that happens is that the COVID is impacting the community, but it's impacting the pastors, the people running the churches, right? You're constantly working and you don't have time to take a break because the folks that you're serving are such desperate need. So the fact that I had people like Jason and others reaching out, the fact that people right away were willing to put things together, the fact that you were able to make donations for us made a big difference, because that was something I didn't have to pick up the phone and say, hey, Jason, do you know this thing happening called COVID? And do you know our people are dying impacted? No, he was able to do that. And so that is important for us too. And we have relations and partnerships that people are looking to help in very meaningful ways without us having to ask. So that takes a big pressure off my shoulder, that I know if at any moment I can call Pastor Jason and say, can Wicker Park help out? Do you think they can help? So for your support and share our thanks and gratitude with the rest of the congregation. I'm sometimes bad at sending thank you notes every time I remember to try, but I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support.
Yeah, also I want to take also, even though he's not here, but to say being publicly thankful and grateful about Bishop Curry and his work and how he has supported our church and the work that he's doing in the synod. Like it's really magnificent, and I appreciate Bishop Curry, and I just want to say that publicly, like that we are really happy as a church the support that we receive from the synod too. Yes.
Great. Well, I know I probably speak for everyone here that we're so grateful for this partnership, and we're excited to continue and deepen it as much as we can in the months and years to come. Yeah, Pastor Jason, do you want to say anything?
No, I think this was great. Thank you, Vicar, for being able to bring this all together, and a time of hearing stories and sharing in that. And thank you, Jen and Pastor Eddie, for being here and for sharing. And yeah, so we are just thrilled to, and I know Jen and I got together right before kind of everything shut down, and we were planning on having like a meal together and, you know, building some more of those relationships between the church. And so I look forward to, you know, in the time ahead as we move into a more stable period and vaccinations roll out, where we can do that relationship building. And, you know, gosh, that outdoor area, maybe we have a little outdoor service at some point, you know, and you know, we can just find ways to continue to build that relationship. So in the meantime, as we look forward to those days, I just want to remind you that you are in, I know, at least my personal prayers and thoughts often, and we are your neighbors nearby, and continue to let us know what's going to be most effective in this pandemic time. So don't hesitate to give us a ring, and we are happy to help out as we can.
And if you need to use our outsides of the church, let us know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, with that, I'll just wish everyone a great rest of your day. Go in peace. Hugs to everyone. And yeah, blessings.
Take care.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
Hey, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's just meet you.